Hi folks, welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk. Today we're taping at a very special place at the Domino Sugar Factory in Brooklyn. And I'm here with the principal of Two Trees Management, Jed Walentas. Give us a rundown of what you see, where we are right now, and sort of like the breakdown of the area.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. It's been, I think, 12 years now since we bought the site. And yeah, huge progress. You know, we started by building Domino Park. I think that's been open 4, 5, 6 years now. Millions of people come every year. I think one of the great recreational spots in all of New York City, certainly for its size and scale. And we've now built the 325 Kent building across the street, 550 apartments, 1 South First Street, another 400 apartments, and we're about to open close to 600 apartments with Annabelle Seldorf across the street. The building we're sitting in here is 400,000 feet of office. We opened in the fall.
Recently, actually, at the Real Deal conference, you said that you were the only person dumb enough to build spec commercial during COVID. And how do you feel about it? I mean, if you could go back and sort of redo the planning for this project?
No, I feel great about it. I was, being a touch flip and also a touch honest. Look at where we are. I think we've built one of the great buildings in New York City here. What people have to understand, people have different business models, right? And our business model is a unique, old-fashioned business model. We've got no partners. We don't have any third-party equity at all. So the money all comes out of our pocket. It's me and my dad and my partner, Amir, who's my best friend from college. And so we do 1 or 2 things at a time. We use all our own money. And we're going to own it forever.
Brooklyn in general, and especially this area, obviously there's not a lot of commercial here, like we talked about earlier.
And that's kind of what I got at the conference as well. There's an infinite demand, especially in a product like this, with amenities like this in the park in this location. There's an infinite demand for 3,000 to 10,000 foot users.
Yeah.
Not infinite, but deep. So from a narrative standpoint, from a sex appeal standpoint, from a changing the world's perception of the borough, it would have been great to get a 400,000 foot user here, a headquarters user from Manhattan. It would have been all over the headlines. Okay, from our business standpoint, there are pros and cons to that. For the region, it would have been very helpful. For our business, filling the building up 4,000 or 5,000 feet at a time is great.
Now you're dealing with, instead of 1 tenant, you're dealing with 40 tenants, and also obviously companies that are renting 3,000 to 10,000 square feet, they're not necessarily credited tenants, right?
But the credit comes from the diversity, right? It's a totally different business, right? If you make a 400,000 foot bet, it's very elegant. It all happens at once, but you have a tenant that's got you by the balls. And if they leave, or you think they were a solvent tenant and they're not, like lots of the world, you got a giant fucking problem. Right? The 3,000 to 4,000, 10,000 foot tenants, it's more like the apartment business from a financial standpoint. You got 50 of them. Some grow, some shrink, some leave, you replace them. I think it's important at some juncture that we get some big tenant to come over here from Manhattan at some juncture. In this market, I don't think it's going to happen. I think what you're going to see in this market is tons of the small companies where all the human capital is living here anyway, and they just want to be here. They'd rather be here than Manhattan. Forget about price adjusted. They just rather be here. And the other thing you're going to see a lot of, I think, is you're going to see Manhattan tenants have 25, 30,000 foot satellites over here.
What's the sort of companies that you're getting to come here?
So on the office side, it's all, it's all those small companies. It's of the neighborhood, right? It's everything you could imagine the kids in Williamsburg who are living in Williamsburg, Bushwick, Greenpoint. It's startup hair care companies, it's software people, it's AI people, it's people in the Bitcoin space, which I don't understand, but whatever.
I'm really curious about the curation of the retail, because I always find that so interesting. I know the TF Cornerstone guys were really trying to do that in Long Island City as much as they could.
I think what we did in Dumbo is kind of one of the most storied examples of this, and we're bringing that same sensibility here. But yeah, I mean, we brought Missy here. Me and some colleagues ate at Lilia, and we're like, this place is amazing, and introduced ourselves. And we don't really want chains and banks and those kinds of things. We want people that are going to activate the neighborhood and add value. You know, we build homes for people, and then it becomes very private. The parts of the neighborhood that remain public forever, and that the public's constantly engaging with, sometimes you might go to a friend's dinner party or whatever, but is the retail, right? The retail, whether you want them to be or not, and maybe not in an economic sense, but in a social sense, the retailers are your partners in the neighborhood. Right? And they're the face that you're putting on the neighborhood. And when somebody comes to visit, their perception of what's going on here is going to be their experience with the retail and the experience with the public space in the park.
You know, now you have this new position as the chairman of the Real Estate Board of New York. Is that something that you sought?
No, I was going to joke that I drew the short straw, but that's not true. No, I didn't. It was not something I really wanted to do. I have a new wife. I have an 11-year-old and 13-year-old at home. Douglas Durst, the outgoing chair, called me and asked if I would have any interest in doing it. And I said I was deeply, deeply flattered, but no thank you. Yeah. And then they called back and they said, listen, the group really would like you to do it. So I said, okay, I have the platform and the resources to affect the agenda here a little bit. And I feel a huge responsibility to try my best to move the city in the right direction.
How involved is the position? Is it?
Light.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's like another full-time job. I mean, listen, through February and March, it was like having another full-time job as we went through the housing stuff with the governor. Since then, it's been a little slower. Obviously, over the summer, it'll be a little slower. But no, it's a huge responsibility. And as I said, I wouldn't have wanted to do it if I didn't take it seriously.
Do you feel that there's more that Repni can do, and there's more money that can go into you guys could influence the campaigns more?
Listen, democracy is big and complicated. And you know, both real estate as an industry, but every other industry spends money to pursue influence.
Sure.
In the United States, conventionally, we had a two-party system. The world basically kind of giggled when we talked about the differences between the two, right? The rest of the world would look at us and be like, those aren't two parties, that's one fucking party. Like, when you go to poli-sci like 101 in the 9th grade, you learn in a two-party system, everyone moves to the middle and the middle vote wins.
Right.
And for the first 3 centuries of our democracy, that's kind of what we had. Through a whole combination of things, the flanks, the extremes of both parties have gained a lot of influence, and the center has lost its center of gravity, both locally, nationally, kind of everywhere you're seeing this. I think it's very unhealthy. So, yes, in every way possible, I spend time, energy, money trying to bring us back to the middle.
Right.
The second thing I find to be troubling, and today was an example of it, we've seemed to become incapable over the last 10 years of accomplishing anything that's hard, of accomplishing things that are totally the right public policy that have a little political hiccup or speed bump, or maybe a medium-sized one.
Give me an example of that.
Congestion pricing today was horrifying to me, I have to be honest.
So you were rooting for congestion pricing?
I am still rooting for congestion pricing. But the only people who are against congestion pricing are people that have a rational self-interest to not pay a certain toll. And okay, we're all against use fees in certain ways, but rational economics is built around use fees. When you provide negative externalities to the world, carbon, traffic, you should get charged for that. You are taking from society for your own benefit, I shouldn't drive around for free all day.
Right.
I create nuisance for the other 8 million New Yorkers. And we have things that need to be subsidized. Transit should be and needs to be subsidized. And the people driving should subsidize the transit. It's not a complicated rubric.
Right.
And the people who are opposed to it just don't want to pay. And that's okay. They're allowed to have that position, but it's not a good public policy argument.
It's just that, there's this thought that the New Yorkers are already overtaxed, and to add this on top of it, it's...
New Yorkers are way overtaxed, but we have new use taxes on all kinds of things every day. And there are lots of taxes that don't make sense. And we don't do a good job as a city and a state efficiently making use of our budgets. So we piss away lots of money on all kinds of stupid things. And so yes, the tax environment here is too high, but that's a completely unrelated argument to, does someone's individual behavior create a negative externality to society, and should there be a tax or fee or whatever word you want to use associated with that? Somebody thinking they generally pay too many taxes and therefore they don't want to drive their car around is a specious argument.
So how is that, can you use your position at the Rebni to influence that, or?
No, we live in a giant city, and one of the greatest things about the city and one of the most frustrating things about the city is how diffuse power really is here. Right? For a city of this size, we basically have no corruption. So the good news and the bad news is that none of us as individuals have a tremendous ability to move the needle on most of these things. But with time and energy and consistency and coalition building, you can hopefully move the ball on a lot of these things. I am frustrated over the last 10 years, it's clearly been harder to get big, important public policy stuff done. And the city needs to grow and innovate and learn. And I'm very worried that we're not doing enough big idea things and smart public policy things. Politics is winning more and more and more over policy.
There was, a couple of bad policies that happened that really impacted real estate and the city in the long run. Obviously, the rent law policy had a big impact on the city. But then after that, there was with the city council, they made it very difficult to build for developers. And even though the city needs more housing,
the single biggest things that affect the real estate business in New York are not real estate policies. It's the overall health of the city, right? Our industry is a complete referendum on the economic and social health of the city, right? So we can lose a lot of battles on this project or that thing or whatever. And if the city's wildly prosperous, we're going to be doing great.
Yeah.
And our projects are going to be successful. And the opposite is also true. If we win all those fights, one-on-one fights, we win a huge number of them, and the city goes into a state of decay, we're fucked. Mm-hmm. People on Wall Street talk about bulls and bears eat and pigs get slaughtered. Mm-hmm. I think that's very important for our industry too, right? The truth is that our industry makes an irrational amount of money because government has turned us into a cartel. Right? Government has made real estate a regulated industry. If you look at the history of wealth in our country, there are two typologies of really irrational wealth. There are people that have really changed the world, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, whatever. And there are people that worked in regulated industries, candy, oil, we can go on, railroads.
Right.
Real estate in urban areas is that. And the irony of the thing is that every time government does something to constrain us or to protect our tenants, or landmark more stuff or create more zoning, they're sabotaging our development instincts. But as owners, they're just further crippling supply, and they're making rents actually go higher.
Yeah. Isn't that ironic that it's actually...
It's very ironic.
It's just,
and they don't understand, or most of them don't understand at all.
Well, it's been 5 years now. I mean,
It's been 70 years.
Yeah.
Or 80 years. Yeah, you know, it hasn't been 5 years. It's been, and the truth is, the only way to really make housing more affordable for everybody is to build a fuck ton of housing. And why government and politics haven't really figured that out, I was going to say I don't know. I kind of do know. They have to get elected every 2 or 4 years. These projects take forever to build, and to create enough housing to actually push rents down takes a longer period of time than their political lifespan. So instead what they do is they want to cherry pick individual people to win the lottery and protect them. And then there's this silent majority out there who's getting fucked, and their rents are going up and up and up and up, but there's not a press conference about it or not a thing, and so they don't know who to direct their anger at, so the politicians think that's kind of safe. Those of us that are pushing government to build more, over time it will make our net worth less. I'm okay with that. I think most of my colleagues are okay with that, right? We've made enough, we don't, you know, I do think that certainly most of the families, most of the principals of the big firms, I think truly do want what's best for the city.
Yeah.
And we're not out there trying to advocate for policies that are just good for real estate and are going to fuck everybody else.
Give us your vision of Brooklyn. I mean, when your father, came here in the 1980s, it was tough to believe in Brooklyn.
I think my hope for Brooklyn and my hope for all neighborhoods in New York is prosperity, right? But you want the trajectory to be the same everywhere, and you want the investment in public goods to be the same everywhere, right? You want everyone access to parks. You want everyone to have access to great schools. You want everyone to have access to reasonable transit infrastructure. You want everyone to have access to clean air and a healthy lifestyle, and be able to buy vegetables at the supermarket.
There's, we do these dinners in most of our markets, and we sit down with all these developers at these dinners, like in Dallas, Chicago, and so on. And it's so funny. The one thing that always comes up, they always say, "This is the Williamsburg of Chicago," and this is the Williamsburg. And I love how Williamsburg has become its own adjective. You know.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
But it's a special place. It's a really special place, and it's a privilege to be a part of it.